Are you 55 or older and wondering if an annuity is right for you? Today we'll talk about what an annuity really is, why they work for some retirees, the cons of annuity, and most importantly, how to decide if it's the right fit for your retirement plan. Hi, I'm Molly Nelson here with Loren Merkle and Clint Huntrods. And Loren, annuities are often misunderstood.
Often misunderstood because there's so many of them, and many of these annuities come with contracts with not really common language, so it's hard to even understand what you're reading with many of the annuities.
And getting out of the contracts can be difficult.
Yeah, you always want to be aware of what that contract has as far as surrender charges or a surrender schedule. So it is more complex than maybe an investment account. You want to make sure you understand those before you make a change.
And you want to make sure that if you are considering an annuity, Loren, it has a purpose.
It has a purpose. You need to look at your plan, try to identify what you are trying to accomplish with whatever product you're using, specifically this time with annuities. Make sure it fulfills that purpose and you understand how to get out of it if in fact you need to get out of it, because with any type of product, things do change and you might want to change products. With annuities, no different.
Okay, let's help people make sense of it all. First, in a little Annuity 101, exactly, Clint, what is an annuity?
Yeah, an annuity is really an insurance strategy. So you put together a certain amount into a premium with an insurance company, and in return, they provide you with certain promises or guarantees, ability for growth over time. And so it's really an insurance strategy. Now, there's a lot of different types out there. That's where sometimes it gets confusing. But a few main types you can think of is a focus on accumulation and growth over time, or a strategy that is designed for a future income stream.
Okay, I'd like to break that down a little bit first. Let's break it down in the accumulation type of an annuity. What do people need to know?
Sure. With the accumulation annuities, what people are looking to try to accomplish is growth within the portfolio. And it's important to note that within each of those categories, right, the income as well as the accumulation, there's a lot of subcategories of annuities. With accumulation annuities, you're looking for some growth. Many times people are also looking for safety. So this could be a piece of your portfolio where you're not looking for the wild ride of the stock market. You want safety, but you also want some accelerated growth, maybe more growth than what you get in some other guaranteed types of investments.
What do we need to know about the other category?
Just the other category would be more of an income focus or an income purpose behind an annuity. That could be an immediate payout. So and you put a premium in, that immediately turns into an income stream, or it could be something that was more deferred. Deferred are pretty common, where you have a period of time that you're going to roll up. The insurance company often gives you growth during that time period, and then at some point you would turn that strategy on for an income stream. Single life, joint life, that's likely to pay across your entire life. However, it could be subject to different options if you wanted a fixed payout for a period of time.
Okay, so one thing about annuities I found is they do get a little confusing. And I think that's why sometimes people may be getting one that's not a great fit for them, or they don't even understand why they're in the one, because inside these two purposes, then there are subcategories of different types of annuities. So I think we need to go over that for the viewers. But if they don't understand it, it's okay, because it does get a little complicated.
Well, this is where it gets really simple. Okay, this is
where
it gets really simple. There are many different types of annuities, just like there's many different types of stocks. There's 5,000 different stocks traded on the American exchanges. All of them are a little bit different. There's a lot of different types of bonds, a lot of different types of mutual funds. There's a lot of different types of annuities. One of the most common types of annuities that you may have heard of are what we call variable annuities. And essentially what that means is there are sub-accounts underneath that annuity that you can invest your money in, and the return is going to be variable, just like a mutual fund. So your investment can go up, it can go down based on the performance of these sub-accounts or these funds underneath the annuity. That's where it gets the variable in name. But it's still an annuity because it's still issued through an insurance company. And that's where the annuity aspect comes in. Now with these variable annuities, you can make that an accumulation annuity, or you can make that an income annuity, or maybe even both, because you can attach riders to it. And maybe you have a income rider on your variable annuity. You do pay an extra fee for that most times. And that rider will guarantee a certain increase in your income bucket over the course of time. Later down the road, if you choose to, you can use that income bucket and turn it on for guaranteed lifetime income, much like what you were talking about with the income categories of annuities. So the most common type of annuity most people have heard about is the variable annuity, but there's way more.
You want to talk about some of those?
Yeah, one of the other options that you could look at would be a fixed indexed annuity. With a fixed indexed annuity, the fixed part is that there's likely some sort of protection from market volatility. So if the market goes down, this strategy is not likely to go down as far as the market does. There might even be a floor in place where it can't go backwards at all. And then depending on what the market does in terms of performance and the way that those strategies are constructed within that contract, you can get participation on the upside of the market, but you're able to do so without as much risk on the downside. That's a strategy that can be a little bit more simple to understand than what you mentioned with the variable annuity, Loren. And there's been a lot of shift into that area just to find strategies that are more simple, easy to understand. I know how this is going to work. And that can be a strategy that families consider as part of their retirement plan.
And one nice thing, I think, and I've heard you say this over the years, when there's more options, sometimes that's a really good thing because you have more opportunity to find an annuity that fits your retirement, not your neighbors, not somebody at work, but your retirement. So let's talk about the pros of an annuity.
Well, part of the pros of the annuity is you have a defined purpose in your plan. There's a void in your plan that you are looking to fill that traditional investments like stocks, bonds, mutual funds can't really fill. Maybe that defined purpose is you want some safety. You want some safety in your portfolio. You don't have to worry about this piece of your portfolio going on that roller coaster ride of the markets, but you still are trying to beat a return, achieve a return that's a little bit more than what you can get at the bank. You know, if the bank in your checking account is giving you near zero, that's not a great return. If your savings account is giving you 1 or 2, well, can you beat that with this particular type of an annuity and still be safe? That would be one defined purpose that you might have within your overall portfolio plan, that you say, hey, let's take a piece of the portfolio, put it in this protected annuity, but it's an accumulation annuity, so you're intended to get some extra growth over what you would other alternatives that are guaranteed. That could be one decision, but with that, most annuities do have constraints on how you take money out of it. So many annuities or insurance companies are going to say, you invest $100,000 in this annuity, you can only take 10% out each year after the first 12 months for the next 7 years, the next 10 years. There's different durations as well. And that's where you really need to understand the terms of the contract and have that defined purpose. You're looking for guaranteed money. You have this time frame that you're looking for this guaranteed money or growth, and then that annuity may play a role there.
And when we think about the income purpose, the pros of that would be that as families enter retirement and they turn off their paycheck, they likely have Social Security that's part of their income plan, but sometimes they're trying to understand, how do I use my investments to get consistent income over time? An annuity for income could be a strategy that they may consider. That could help to solidify the amount that they want to spend, and the difference between that and Social Security, perhaps they use a portion of their portfolio to have an income-based strategy that would help to fill that gap and allow them to consistently spend in retirement, no matter what happens with the market, because that strategy would have some more protections in place and would be guaranteed for the rest of their life.
Yeah, some of the most financially confident retirees have a pension, but not many people do have a corporate pension for today's retirees, but many people choose to create their own personal pension through an income annuity to provide that guaranteed income, which provides that certainty to you. You know, each month for the rest of your life, you have Social Security coming in. That's a defined income amount that does have a cost of living adjustment. And then you have this extra coming from this income annuity on top of that. That certainty can go a long way for a lot of retirees.
And with those strategies where I've maybe got a lump sum pension option, or I could take it on a monthly basis, sometimes families actually will take the lump sum, put it towards an annuity type strategy for income, and that can actually enhance their legacy more than if they had a pension and they were to pass away, their spouse passes away, that benefit is gone. Whereas that annuity may have something that continues on. So it can be a more effective way to use the pension lump sum option to help benefit the longer term legacy.
We just got done with the pros of an annuity. Now it's time to talk about the cons of an annuity. I think the complexity that we talked about is one of the cons.
The complexity, because there's a lot of different types of annuities. They all work a little bit different. You can have a rider, not have a rider, multiple riders. All of that comes into play. But I would say at the top of the list, one of the cons would be cost. Many people have heard about annuities and the high price that they pay for these annuities. And so let's talk a little bit about how annuities, how you could pay for whatever annuity you do have. Variable annuities, again, one of the most common types of annuities, are typically going to be one of the more expensive types of annuities, because all variable annuities have what is called a mortality expense. A very common charge for that mortality expense is 1.25%. So that means whatever money you invest into that annuity, that's 1.25% per year that comes out of that money that you invest. And you don't necessarily see it. I mean, you see it in the prospectus, that book that nobody ever reads. You see it in there, but you don't really see it in the performance of your investments because it comes net of your performance. So if you would have earned 10% in that annuity, but you were charged 1.25%, that means you're not going to see 10, you're going to see 8.75% return. But wait, that's not all. There is more, because underneath the variable annuity, there are those sub-accounts. There's cost to those sub-accounts, and the traditional expenses of those sub-accounts, 1 to 2% commonly. So add that to the 1.25, and then if you have a rider, it could be 0.6, so a little over 0.5%, up to about 1.5%. So for variable annuities, it's not uncommon for you to pay somewhere between 3 to 5% per year. That is a negative for many people, because not too many investment types of investments you shouldn't be paying 3 to 5% most of the time.
And we're fortunate today that there's a lot more options than maybe somebody's parents or their grandparents had. You know, sometimes a variable was one of the only options that were out there. And so a lot of families maybe started into that and didn't necessarily realize some of those costs that could be present. Today, there's a lot more options, a lot lower cost options. There's strategies that could be actually 0%. There is no annual fee that you pay to participate in that strategy, not all that different than a CD that's at the bank. There are strategies where maybe you're guaranteeing that lifetime benefit for income, and so that might have a 1%, 1.25% rider that's on that, but it's really important to understand what fees am I going to pay, and then how does that all fit into the overall plan.
Also, getting to your money, right? Annuities have some very specific rules about when you can start getting at that money.
Yeah, liquidity is a big concern as well, because almost all annuities do have some liquidity constraints, which is a big reason you don't want to put too much of your money into an annuity type of investment. Just like you don't want to put too much of your money into stocks or bonds or mutual funds, you need to make sure you're diversified. With most annuities, you invest your $100,000 into that annuity, and then there's constraints on when you can take it out. A lot of them will have a 7 to 10 year surrender penalty time frame, which means if you take too much money out over the course of that 7 to 10 years, the insurance company will charge you a surrender penalty. So you invest $100,000 into the annuity, and 2 years later, you're like, wait a minute, let's change this. You take that $100,000 out, they're going to charge you probably somewhere between 8 to 12%, depending upon the annuity and the insurance company, which means you won't get your full $100,000 back. You might get 90, 85, and that's something that you really want to be cautious of before you make that annuity decision.
And sometimes we encounter families who maybe have had an experience where maybe your 401k has, hey, if you'd like to turn this into guaranteed lifetime income, here's the amount that you could get. And that what that fails to realize is that families probably want more liquidity than that. So you probably don't want to take your entire 401k or your entire investment portfolio towards strategies like this that then are going to limit how much liquidity that you have in any given time. And families never know how things might play out. What if there's a home emergency where you've got a storm hits your house and now you've got some big out-of-pocket expenses you maybe didn't plan for, or that monthly income that you have isn't necessarily there to cover, and it might be hard to reach into that annuity strategy if you have too much in there to be able to get enough out. And the last thing that you want to be doing is incurring those types of penalties that you're voluntarily entered into and then find yourself really regretting at some point down the road, which gets to the importance of understanding how these strategies fit within your plan. You don't want to say, hey, this strategy is great, let's put everything in it. You want to think about how does this fit across the larger portfolio, the larger plan, and that's something that not every advisor out there helps families through.
We do know that annuities can be a powerful tool. So let's talk about when an annuity makes sense. One point here, Loren, is if you need more guaranteed income beyond Social Security.
If you want more guaranteed income to go on top of your Social Security, a guaranteed income annuity can make sense. It can give you that extra confidence to know that instead of just a $2,500 a month Social Security payment, you're going to get $5,000 a month, $2,500 from Social Security, $2,500 from your guaranteed annuity, and that is never going to run out. That is that provides a lot of confidence for many people. That can be one of the benefits of an income annuity and is one of the reasons why some people choose to use them.
Also, if you don't have a pension, you mentioned that's when an annuity can make sense. Clint, if market swings can cause you some, stress when you see them, an annuity might be a good fit.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, families, as they're getting closer to retirement or entering into retirement, they don't want to be pedal to the metal from a market risk standpoint. Well, so how do we think about lowering that risk? A portion of the portfolio towards a more guaranteed or protected strategy could make sense and could even be viewed as a bond alternative, as bonds don't always hold up in a downturn in the market. We saw that in 2022. Perhaps an alternative strategy like a fixed index annuity could make sense to protect you on the downside, but still give you opportunities for growth over time based on market performance.
I'm also thinking of an annuity fitting certain personality types, Loren. If you really value that sort of predictability, where some people are more risk takers, but if you value predictability, an annuity might be right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what goes into retirement planning and the enjoyment of retirement is the emotions. And if you can have more level performing type of portfolio, that can lead to more level emotions, and you don't have to worry as much about what your portfolio is doing or how it's going to deliver you consistent guaranteed income. And you can worry about the fun things in retirement, that really what you want to focus on as you go to and through retirement. So that can be a big key as well.
And as we look at when an annuity makes sense for families that have longevity, it can be a good fit.
Yeah, as you think about the guaranteed income that you can't outlive, that could be very valuable, especially if you envision living out till 90, 100. Who knows with some of the anti-aging and technologies that could exist.
Keep it going.
You just never know how long your longevity could be. And that's where a guaranteed strategy that's going to provide you income as long as you're alive could make an awful lot of sense long term.
Now it's time to talk about when an annuity may not make sense. And Loren, sometimes when you're looking at old annuities or replacing old annuities, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, annuities have changed so much over the last couple decades. There's a lot of people out there with what we would call legacy annuities. Maybe 15 years ago, you bought an annuity which sounded really good. And by the way, probably has worked for you over the course of this time. But now you're sitting here wondering, what do I do with this annuity now? How does this fit into your plan as you're going to and through retirement? And again, because annuities have changed so much, there's a lot of annuities out there that might provide better guarantees than what you're receiving with the legacy annuity, might be less expensive than what the legacy annuity is charging you. So it made old annuities that you've had now need maybe a more defined purpose around them. And then if an annuity still fits in your plan, is there a better annuity out there that can provide better guarantees or lower expenses, or maybe both?
And even just the changing interest rate environment can have a big impact on that. If you started a strategy when interest rates were really low, think back to 2020, today we're in a different world. Interest rates are quite a bit higher. Bad news if you're looking to purchase a house and have a mortgage. Good news if you're looking to replace an old existing strategy that may not have as much value as it once did, or may not be fitting in your plan quite as well, or just doesn't have a payout that's commensurate with what today's options look like.
When we talk about when an annuity may not make sense, Clint, you recently talked to somebody on a Retire Ready call. An annuity was presented to them as a comprehensive retirement plan. That may be a time when an annuity does not make sense.
Exactly. There was a family who had been meeting with their advisor for a couple of years, and they're working with someone who's an investment-focused advisor. Well, they're getting closer to retirement, and they were looking for more planning. So that each year they kept asking, hey, can we get a little bit more of a defined plan? Can we do a little bit more advanced planning around income, taxes, even the investments? And eventually the advisor came to them and said, well, here's an annuity strategy that we believe will help you with more of a defined plan. And when they called, they said, that doesn't feel right. We're asking for more planning, and what we got was an investment product, an investment solution, which is not uncommon for their investment advisor to be thinking about. But in their case, they just said, hey, this doesn't feel right. And so they were looking, when they called us, for more comprehensive planning. And so what does make sense, and as we talked through this and actually started working with this family, they wanted to build a more comprehensive plan out first, knowing that that will lead us towards what are the right investment decisions. Maybe annuity may not be, but what they didn't like was, hey, instead of planning, we're going to put this strategy in. No matter how many riders are on it, it probably isn't still meeting the confidence they need to be able to transition into retirement.
Well, good out of them. They realized, it sounds like right away, that a product does not equal a plan. And they were looking for answers like, what did they do with their Social Security? What did they do with getting income above Social Security out of the investments that they have? What do they do from a tax planning standpoint, a legacy planning standpoint? So many people confuse product for plan. And you're right, creating that plan first and then seeing where the product fits into the plan is the exact order that you should follow.
That begs the question, what is a retirement plan? We have a visual representation of the plans that you guys help people build. It's on the screen. This is a visual representation of the Retire Secure Roadmap. Clint, there are 6 pillars. And you not only, so this annuity obviously works in the investment and the income portion of this, but when you help people build comprehensive plans, it's about a lot more than an annuity. It's about those 6 pillars.
Yeah, really thinking about, what does that income plan look like, transitioning from your working years into retirement. And families have a lot more questions than just what does the annuity do within that. They want to be thinking about, how do they maximize Social Security? Do they have a pension? And then how are they going to be able to consistently get income out of their investments no matter what happens with the market? They've got dollars they've saved pre-tax from a tax planning standpoint, and they've never paid tax before on those dollars. In retirement, that tax bill is going to be due. Families are going to be looking for, how do we get proactive and think more long-term rather than just kind of what happened last year when they file their taxes. Think about investments and how that changes in the retirement phase. You really want to make sure that the investments that work during your working years are positioned for the new phase of life, where you might be thinking about taking distributions out, not just focused on market growth and performance. We think about legacy and we think about healthcare. All these pillars drive the lifestyle, which is that favorite pillar in retirement. These are the things that families have worked so hard to be able to accomplish, is some of those hopes and dreams that they have. We want to help families in exploring that, and we start to build that plan out, the investment decisions will take care of themselves. We'll know what makes sense, and we'll invite the families in to have a collaborative process to map out those investments.
Loren, we started the show talking about if you're 55 and older and wondering if an annuity is right for you. What is the time frame on this type of an investment?
Usually that's a good time frame to start investigating whether an annuity makes sense. That's also a really good time to start your plan, because the plan is going to tell you, does an annuity make sense? Does an annuity not make sense? Should you have this stock, this bond? All of the product that you choose to have within your plan is going to be determined by your plan. And the overall comprehensive plan will make your product selection that much easier, whether you use an annuity or don't use an annuity. The plan is a good time to start, and age 55 is a good time to start planning for a lot of people.
Your road to a comprehensive retirement could start with a Retire Ready call. Take that first step now by going to retirereadycall.com and scheduling a complimentary call today. This is Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching. Click here for more great videos, and don't forget to subscribe for more retirement planning content.